Happy late Halloween and happy Monday, everyone. Today I want to talk about a spooky character, Venom. What makes him scary? Well, whenever he shows up in a video game, the game ends up sucking more balls than your mom at a bubble tea house. Specifically, today I want to focus on his appearance in Spider-Man 2 and analyze what went wrong and what we can learn from that game's mistakes. Now, I know this is my second video in a row that is negative about Spider-Man 2, so before we get ahead of ourselves, let me remind you that I love this game, and just because it has flaws doesn't make it unlovable. Just like you. I think there are three major flaws in Venom that I want to deconstruct, which are screen time, characterization, and presence. But before we begin, I want to point out some things I think aren't issues. For example, maybe this is a hot take, but the presence of Eddie Brock doesn't matter to me. I like the character, but I'm not against different characters like Harry taking up the mantle, especially because it's not Eddie that makes Venom what he is as a villain. It's the powers of the symbiote combined with the hatred of Spider-Man. I'll touch on this more when we get to the characterization segment, but for now, while I would have liked to have seen Eddie, I don't think Harry is an inherently wrong move. Another thing that doesn't bother me is the resistance to fire. I know it's one of the symbiote's main weaknesses, but it just doesn't bother me, especially when Brian Intihar's reasoning is just that making Venom walk through fire looks cool. Fine by me. Generally, if it serves the interpretation of the character well, then I don't mind bending the rules a little bit, and we'll see that Venom was a weak point for mostly writing issues, and not for anything that surface level. Okay, with those two big caveats out of the way, let's look at the screen time of Venom. It's not just the amount of screen time, but more specifically, how long is spent on each event. Just to clarify, I won't be focusing on the section where we play as Venom because I think that segment is perfect, no critiques, just gas. However, things start to crumble just moments after. Let's look at how much time is spent in the Venom arc of the game, which is the third act. It lasts about 2.5 hours, or at least it did for me in my 10-hour playthrough. But more specifically, Venom himself is on screen for a shockingly small amount of time. Take a look. Yeesh! This isn't too much of a problem because most of this act is surrounding Peter, and specifically how the two Spider-Men are going to fight back against Venom, but little of that time is spent interacting with Venom himself. I believe this is a large problem with his portrayal here. We spend too much time dealing with symbiotes, with the fate of the world, and with Harry, but not Venom. And to see what I mean, we can look at the characterization of Venom. Let me clarify something off the bat, and it's something I mentioned earlier. Venom is a combined hatred towards Peter of the symbiote and the host, and this is why I don't mind the host not being Eddie. But a big problem that Venom has in this game is that he doesn't really hate Peter. Sure, Harry feels betrayed by him, and he's not happy that Peter wants to destroy the suit, but there are many points, especially in the final confrontation, where Harry is clearly not in control, and even throughout the game there are plenty of points where Venom states that his goal is for Peter to join him, not for him to die. Now granted, certain portrayals of Venom have leaned into Venom also not necessarily wanting to flat out kill Peter, but to make him suffer first. However, that's not what we get here. So much of Harry and Peter's dialogue is Harry saying, "Look how much fun we were having over here. Wouldn't it be awesome if we could be two goopy best friends?" There's this build up to the line where Harry says, "We are Venom," but the problem I have with this is, well, what are you Venom to? What are you poisoning? Sure, maybe this is a problem that was created by something like the Venom movies and simply perpetuated here, but at least in those movies, Venom is looked at as an anti-hero, and this game poses him, or more accurately, the symbiote, as a villain. I believe this is the crux of where the issue lies. The main antagonist of the game is an alien that comes to New York and possesses whatever body it needs to colonize Earth. Venom, as in the Spider-Man villain, is present in name and design only. Otherwise, the main bad guy is just a goopy alien. This leads to larger issues I have with the plot overall, and that is that I don't think Venom had enough room to be in this game. Now, don't get me wrong, I know the third act was changed a lot, but it's just something we have seen so many games that try to cram a Venom story alongside a symbiote story struggle with, and this misstep stems from people who conflate the two. Black Suit Spider-Man and the trials that go along with that storyline are separate from Venom's storyline. Yes, they are consecutive storylines, but they are not the same. I think Spider-Man 2 should have been strictly about the black suit, and the third game about Venom. Obviously, this is a difficult thing to pull off, and I imagine Insomniac would never get the go-ahead from Sony, because if we were to have both in one game, then we can make even more cash and bank on even more hype moments. If you want proof that this game just isn't big enough for this storyline, then look at your own reaction to this message. When this popped up, my first thought was, oh, already? And I bet good money it was your first thought too. Isn't it strange that Spider-Man 2 felt like such a short game despite being longer than the first? I think that feeling comes down to just how fast the story moves, and not in a good way. We spend under 2 hours in this 10-hour game in the symbiote suit. I'm not saying the game needs to be longer though, because that's unrealistic. People on the internet want the game to be twice the length, and I think for a game like this, that just isn't realistic. Especially when most superhero games are short. Arkham Asylum is 4 hours, City took me 5, and yet those games are loved. If Spider-Man was an Assassin's Creed-esque RPG, then sure, we can expect a bit more, but I don't think any of us want that. My point here is the length itself isn't necessarily the issue, but it's the presence. This leads me to the third major issue with Venom in this game, and it's the presence. This is a problem with a lot of the game. Many villains, ideas, and themes come and go so quickly that we don't get time to marinate on it. To look at what I mean, let's take a look at a different video game interpretation of Venom that has many similar issues. Spider-Man Web of Shadows. This game features a Venom storyline and Black Suit storyline in one, but goes on the assumption that the player is familiar with both. People always talk about this portrayal of Venom because, admittedly, the game gets balls to the wall with it, especially when it comes to the boss fights, but Venom is hardly in the game. He shows up in the beginning, briefly in the middle act, and is then gone until the end game. And the reason this is mostly okay is because Venom's presence is felt across the game. He's the inciting incident, he turns the city on its head, and he is the catalyst for all of the fun in the game. This is why I downplayed the significance of Venom's actual screen time, because in the end, it doesn't really matter so long as he has presence over the game, but he doesn't. I think the series would be far better off if the game were left with Spider-Man 2 having strictly the black suit. Meanwhile, Venom gets a whole game to himself, and his villainy is able to flourish, because here, he only acts as a physical force. What Venom is also capable of is the mental warfare. He nullifies Peter's spider sense, meaning he never knows when he's in danger, and because the symbiote is connected to a hive mind, he knows all of Peter's secrets. Once Harry gains the symbiote, he doesn't utilize any information against Peter aside from Scream. Hell, here's an idea. Since the symbiote is connected to a hive mind and Peter, due to anti-Venom, still has some of that symbiote within him, we could have Venom speak to us throughout the story, commenting on our progress, taunting us, and making him feel like he is in our heads. Even then, however, the sheer lack of time we spend in the third act is what hinders Venom the most. Okay, so we got a bad Venom interpretation, so what? Why do people care so much? Well, the biggest reason is that we won't be getting another one. Typically speaking, you can't do a Venom storyline twice, and certainly not a Black Suit storyline. If we get a bad Spider-Man game, then honestly, that's not that big of a deal. When the Amazing Spider-Man 2 game came out and sucked balls, I didn't care because it's not like we're never going to get a Spider-Man game again. But considering that something like a symbiote Spider-Man game is something you can only do once per universe, mostly, and because games take so long to develop, then it's not unreasonable to think that the next time we get a proper Black Suit Spider-Man game could very well be a decade or more away. I think this is why the fan backlash to how Venom was handled in this game was so loud, because this was, in many ways, our only chance. Sure, there might be a Venom game on the way, as rumors have it, but even then, I imagine that game would focus far more on a lethal protector angle, i.e. an anti-hero angle. This video is sponsored by going for a walk every now and then. Especially at least once a day, going for 10 to 20 minutes gives you a full mental reset. It helps with your mood, it helps you just think clearer, and it gets your body moving so you burn some extra calories. Keep taking care of yourselves, and thank you so much for making it this far into the video. So to recap, the issues with Venom are that 1, he isn't given enough screen time or presence to make an impact, and 2, that he isn't really the villain we want him to be. Venom in this game has been changed to be more of a demon, simply possessing Harry like it began to with Peter, and while some people dream up defenses of this, stating that Peter introduced the idea of rage to the symbiote, he didn't exactly introduce the idea to dominate the world, and when it comes to the story, if we need to pull from sources or theories outside of the actual game, then we have a bit of a problem on our hands. I also think that part of the reason this happens is that Insomniac was pulling from too many different sources of inspiration. Hear me out, but something I loved from all the Insomniac games is that they draw clever inspiration from some of the best Spider-Man media. We continually see Peter doing things that reference the movies or certain comics, and that love for the character is what drives some of the best moments. Especially when it results in Insomniac using those inspirations as a jumping off point to do something completely different. With Venom, I get that same impression that the writers are pulling inspiration from all over. The symbiote takeover feels like a massive homage to Web of Shadows. The way Harry and the symbiote call themselves Venom in unison brings to mind the classic interpretation of the character. The way the symbiote acts like a demon, possessing its host, reminds me a lot of the original Ultimate Spider-Man run, something the games even reference further when showcasing Peter's younger hairdo. The problem the game runs into with this approach is that these inspirations are coming from completely different angles and interpretations of the character, meaning the end product is an abstract art piece that looks cool but lacks cohesion aside from the unifying long tongue and distorted spider across the chest. Of course, I understand that making a character as beloved as this is difficult, and pulling from all these different versions of the character was likely done out of love or at least to satisfy people that have their own favorite version. But if you'll allow me to really lean into the whole armchair critic thing, I would like to offer some things that I would have done to ensure Venom is portrayed well, of course with the benefit of hindsight. For starters, I would stick to one motivation. If it's to take over the world, fine. But if that be the case, then we need to severely lower the impact all of this has on Harry so that the direction of the story is clear. Then, I think we need to make Venom more present, allow him to either be in our ear or ideally have him show up in the open world, as it seemed was originally planned. Finally, I would give him his own game and have it be completely separate from the Black Suit storyline. This would benefit both storylines and allow a Venom game to not be bogged down by having to cram 2 games worth of content into one product. So, what do you think was the biggest problem with Venom? There is always this assumption when I make a video like this that I'm speaking for everyone, and obviously I can't. If you liked Venom in this game, or if you didn't, then why not? Thank you everyone for watching this video, and thank you so much for the support on the channel, and I'll see you all next Monday.